Morning guys, hope you're all doing really well. I'm just going to explain a little bit about what we're looking at today. So last week we learned about how God helped Joshua lead his people, the Israelites, into the promised land, which was the special land that God had promised would be theirs. But God's people kept disobeying his rules, so God allowed their enemies to take their food away. The Israelites turned to God for help and God answered their prayers in the form of a leader. God chose Gideon, but Gideon didn't think he'd be able to do it, so he asked God for a sign. He put a wool fleece on the ground and said, "Tomorrow, if the wool is wet but the ground is dry, I will believe you." The next morning, the wool was wet and the ground was dry. But Gideon wanted another sign. He asked for the opposite. "If the wool is dry and the ground is wet, I will be sure that you have chosen me." The next morning, God made the ground wet and the wool fleece was dry. So Gideon called together an army to fight their enemy, the Midianites. But God said there were too many men, and he made the army smaller and smaller until there were only 300 men. Then God told them a very strange plan. But Gideon had learned to trust God, so he did exactly what God said. During the night, Gideon and his men surrounded the enemy camp. They blew trumpets and smashed clay jars. They waved burning torches in the air. The Midianites were so scared by this, they thought there must be a huge army and they ran away. God's people had won. See, when you're on God's side, you're always on the winning side. This week is all about Gideon. See, Gideon himself admits that he was from a small tribe, that he wasn't a great man, but God still chose him. It took Gideon a bit of time to be certain that God was really speaking to him, but God graciously fulfilled the tests that Gideon set him. Once Gideon was certain, he took action, and it was wholehearted action. Gideon trusted God in the seemingly bizarre things that he had him do. He followed God to the letter with no questioning once his initial doubts had been dispelled. See, like Gideon, we might struggle to know what God's will is for our lives. God gives us all different gifts and skills, and he wants us to use them to serve others. It's okay if you don't know what yours is yet. The best thing to do is to try loads of different things so you can explore what your gifts might be. Gideon learned that the best life is lived when you follow God. And the best life that we can live is by following God, living his way, and growing to be more like Jesus in the things that we say and do. That's God's will for our lives. And in that we get loads of freedom to do what we're passionate about. And we can be like Jesus as a doctor, a scientist, a teacher, or even an astronaut. So don't panic if you're not sure yet what God's plan is for your life. Like Gideon, we just need to focus on listening to and following God, and God will lead you in the very best life. I'll see you soon, guys.